Getting a college degree is no longer just the finish line. And a lot of us think it's a golden ticket to a high paying career. But in this day and age, with the changes going on with the offshoring and AI, taking a look at this 2026 job market, that degree that you just got is starting to look more like a receipt for a car that doesn't even run. Now, in my last video, we looked at the mechanics of making a career shift, and we talked about how you can't just sit still while the world moves and changes. But today, I want to show you exactly where you should be shifting to. Because if you move from one sinking ship just to another one, you're still gonna get wet. Now, is it actually as easy as you get the degree and you get the job? Well, as somebody who helps people in their personal finance and take a look at their trajectory in the future of life and advises people on how to position themselves in the future, I let them know where these big businesses are heading to. And I've had the opportunity to work for these Fortune 500 companies, and I know exactly where they're headed to, which jobs they want to automate, which jobs they want to take off and save money on, or which jobs they want to offshore. So I'm telling you that a lot of things are changing really fast. If your job can be done on a laptop from a beach in another country, or if a chatbot can replicate your daily tasks, you're in danger, my friend. So today we're going to break down the untouchables. And these untouchables are the careers that are non-offshorable. And they'll also be AI resistant and actually growing while everyone else is still struggling. Now let's take a look at this checklist. Before we find the jobs and careers that are winners, we have to look at why so many people are losing right now. And right now, the data is staggering. We're looking at a 41.5% underemployment rate for recent graduates. That means nearly half of the people who just finished school are working jobs that don't even require the degree they just paid for. So now they're probably baristas with a biology degree and probably working in retail with marketing majors. And what's even worse here is that 50% of college graduates end up in a career that has absolutely nothing to do with their major. And we see this constantly with finance and accounting majors. They spend 4 years learning how to crunch these numbers only to realize that if a job can be summarized in a spreadsheet and emailed, it can be offshored to a lower cost labor market or automated by AI. Now, I don't want to put names to these companies that are doing it, but a lot of them are already using Claude for their businesses and AI for a lot of the administrative assistant work. Even the lower end bookkeeping jobs are being taken over already. Now, think about the thousands of accountants we know today. Many of them are probably stuck in grinder roles, doing entry-level tax prep or just basic auditing, right? Well, guess what? AI doesn't get tired of auditing, and it doesn't need a lunch break. So if your value is just processing data, your value is pretty much approaching zero. This is why so many people are unemployable. It's not a lack of talent, but it's a lack of relevance. And they're essentially competing with a cloud-based algorithm that costs only $10 a month. And you've probably seen the headlines saying unemployment is low. Maybe they're stating it's around 4.3%, but that is the U3 number. It's just a sanitized version of reality, because if you look at the U6 measure, which actually includes the discouraged workers and the people trapped in part-time work who want full-time careers, that number actually jumps up to nearly 9%. And we have about 15 million working age Americans who are not gainfully employed, and they're somehow marginally attached to the labor force. Why? Because the middle management layer of the laptop class is being hollowed out. If you're a junior analyst whose job is to summarize reports, then you're being squeezed by AI on one side, but then offshore labor on the other. Now, the accountant trap is a perfect example. We have a massive shortage of senior CPAs, but entry-level grads can't even get a foot in the door. Why? Because firms have officially offshored the easy work to India and the Philippines. And if you don't have the experience to do the high-level advisory work on day one, you're effectively invisible to the entire job market. And this is the gap we have to bridge. Now, if you want to work on job security, you're going to need a moat. A moat is something that makes you irreplaceable. In 2026, that moat is built on three things here: physical presence, cultural intuition, and localized accountability. Here are the roles that are actually hiring and why they're safe. First one being the project management specialist. In this role, you're pretty much the glue. You coordinate schedules, budgets, and technical teams to hit a specific deadline. And you're supposed to identify roadblocks before they even happen and negotiate with clients when things change. And this field is actually projected to grow by 6% over the next decade. which is faster than almost any other corporate role. And construction is where this kind of role is always in demand for. But it's not just limited to construction. Every industry has a project manager or operations management of some sort, and you need a physical presence for this job. You need a people person who can work with other people and coordinate on to finish a project. So this is not something you can typically offshore and do over a Zoom call. So I want you to consider the switch. If you currently lead a team initiative, or you're managing timelines or coordinate cross-functional tasks, you can definitely make this switch. But if you aren't a project manager just yet, start volunteering to lead the special projects in your current office, and maybe consider getting a PMP certification, and structure your resume to focus on delivery and stakeholder management rather than just I do tasks. Now, the second role, we kind of briefly touched on it previously, is the operations manager. It's almost the same as project management, but here you're running the engine. You oversee the facilities and domestic supply chains and human personnel. You make sure that the quality standards are met and the physical floor is operating at peak efficiency. Now, this role is seeing a steady 4.4% growth rate as domestic manufacturing logistics expand. So you might want to consider the switch if you have a background in logistics, military leadership, or even senior retail management. You have the core skills already, and you understand how to manage people and resources in a physical environment. And again, just like the project management, you need a person in place, in person, to deal with this, to check on the projects, to go through each department that has to coordinate with each other but don't know how to. You're that guy who brings them all together and make sure the whole cogs in the system and machine are lubed up and flow properly. And if you want to get started on this and pivoting this move, pivot toward roles in domestic manufacturing or tech hardware logistics, and highlight your experience in resource allocation and conflict resolution. You can't manage a physical warehouse from Zoom, so you want to capitalize on that. Now, the third role is kind of a surprise for a lot of folks, because back in the day, you know, when somebody told you they want to major in communications or marketing, you thought it was kind of a joke. You almost thought, like, what is this liberal arts degree and how useful is it really, you know? And for a lot more traditional folks, you probably thought, I'd rather choose a more sophisticated degree like engineering, accounting, finance, rather than being a marketing manager. But as a surprise, this is one of the roles they want to keep because it's easy and it's not a high-level task. High-level tasks are the things that they are offshoring right now. And truth be told, you need somebody in person for marketing because they want to have somebody in the country who understands the current trends and social trends and the current hypes that people are all about. While general marketing might see slower growth, specializing as a product marketing manager or a growth marketing manager puts you in a bracket with an 8% to 10% growth surge. And here you develop strategies that promote products and build brand loyalty. And if you're considering the switch to this, you know yourself better. If you have strong analytical skills mixed with a deep understanding of American cultural trends, you're halfway there. If you can currently manage client relations or sales strategies, you can definitely make the jump in the switch over. But if you're still lacking in some of these fields, in your current role, just focus on human-centric marketing. And the thing is here with AI, for this role, AI can write all the captions it wants, but you build a brand narrative. So structure your career by mastering tools like HubSpot or Salesforce, but focus your results on customer acquisition and brand differentiation. Now, some of the other roles that are un-offshorable and not replaceable by AI anytime soon are HR, sales, and tech defense. Now, for an HR manager, you're essentially handling the human liability. You manage employee relations, local labor laws, and company culture. Now, this has a projected growth of 5%, and companies are realizing they need high-touch human leadership to navigate such a complex workforce. Now, compare this to your current role. If you're considering the switch to HR, just realize if you're the person everyone comes to for advice, or you're great at de-escalating arguments, then you probably have the talent for this role. If you have any legal or administrative background, that switch is completely easy. Now, the thing is, companies can't offshore HR because they need someone who understands local culture and the US legal liability. So focus on employee relations and organizational development because AI can't replace the human and human resources. Now, for cybersecurity specialists, you're essentially the digital bouncer. You protect the company's physical servers and data from attacks. And this is actually the fastest growing field on this list that I have made up for you guys, with a massive 33% growth projection. Now, while AI helps, companies need a human to make the final call on high pressure security breaches. So for a lot of you who are maybe going to school or considering a switch to a safer role into IT or software development and engineering is such a saturated field. As they'll tell you from time and time again, they're always being laid off, always in need of seniors, but never the entry levels or the junior levels. So a much safer opportunity would be to get into this cybersecurity. So if you have any IT background or a high attention to detail, this is the most stable tech move you can make. But if you actually want to take the steps and get serious about going towards this move, get a CompTIA Security Plus or a CISSP. Even if you start in basic IT, pivot toward physical security and incident response. A company will never fully trust an offshore worker with the keys to their entire security kingdom. Just keep that in mind. Now, the next role is business development and sales. For this, you're the closer and you build the long-term relationships with other businesses. So this isn't any cold calling, but it's basically a high-level partnership building. And sales roles remain high stability because they directly generate revenue. Often, they're outperforming average market growth in the B2B sectors. And for sales, you always need that human component. You can't have AI be as persuasive. People get irritated just calling an office and hearing an AI voice with it. So that's definitely a role where it's gonna be safe. You can always get into sales, but just keep in mind with sales, a lot of the times you only work on commission, or it's heavily dependent on commission. You might have a base salary, but you still have to make up for the rest of it with sales. And it's a lot of people talking. You kind of have to put on this face where you gotta people please and be a puzzle solver. Otherwise, you're not making any money. But if you're serious on considering the switch, think about if you're already a natural communicator and you can build trust quickly, then you're gonna be immune to offshoring. And with this, you're gonna wanna focus on business to business sales. Now, AI can send all the spam emails and sales marketing emails it can, but it won't be able to take the CEO out to lunch and close $1 million partnership. So focus your career on the relationship management. Now, I also want to go over healthcare and health services managers. For this kind of role, it's being the administrator for clinics, hospitals, or nursing homes, and you're essentially managing the budgets, recruiting staff, and ensuring the facility is complying with massive US healthcare regulations. And this field is absolutely exploding with a 28% growth rate. And similar to the first two we talked about, project management and operations management, if you've managed teams in a high pressure environment or have a background in compliance, this is a massive opportunity to switch into. The only problems you would have looking into this kind of role is that clinics and hospitals are kind of picky in the compliance part because they want somebody who's already knowledgeable in medical coding, medical billing, and medical lingo, as well as medical laws in the US. So brushing up on that and learning it yourself and then putting it on your resume can definitely help you on that mode. A lot of times these hospital clinics make it sound a lot more intricate than it should or it can be, but everything is learnable. It just doesn't take that long to learn a new concept. It's the same kind of concept when if you're an accountant and you apply to a role and they say they're looking for somebody with experience in a certain software and it's one of their requirements. Well, to be honest, any software is learnable. The learning curve is so quick, you'll get used to it over time, and it's really not as difficult as they make it out to be. Now, the final role I want to go over is construction managers. In this job, you'll be overseeing building projects from planning all the way to completion. And you manage the subcontractors, verify safety standards, and ensure the foundation is poured correctly. Now, this role is tracking at an 8% growth rate as US infrastructure and housing demands surge. So if you're in engineering, architecture, or have years of boots on the ground experience in trade work, this is your next level. This is where you want to be. So you're going to want to get a certified construction manager credential and focus your current role on the on-site accountability and safety leadership. AI can't strap on a hard hat And honestly, this is the ultimate physical moat that you can have. Well, let's address the elephant in the room. Why can't a brilliant guy in Manila or sophisticated AI do these jobs? Well, it's about liability and accountability. In project management or operations, you're often signing off on safety protocols, legal compliance, and massive financial expenditures. Now, US companies need someone they can hold accountable under US law. So if an offshore worker makes $1 million mistake, the company has very little recourse. But if you make that mistake, you're right there in the office. We can blame it right on you. And let's be honest here, the work that comes back from these offshore departments is usually a complete mess. You spend more time fixing their mistakes than it would have taken to do the work yourself. And I also want to point out that the communication barrier is real. You give them a list of points to focus on, and then they just don't get the why behind the project. And that lack of understanding leads to endless revisions and wasted money. And to add on to this, these roles require soft skills that are actually the hardest skills, like leading a meeting where two departments are at each other's throats, and you're being paid to be the adult in the room. Now, the future of the job economy isn't about who can process the most information. It's about who can take accountability for the outcome. The unemployable group in 2026 consists mostly of people who act as human routers. They just pass information from point A to point B. And if that's your job, you're a target. But if your job is to lead a team, manage a physical operation, or build a brand strategy that connects with real people, then you're an essential personnel. Now, the supply of knowledge workers is high, but the supply of accountable leaders is incredibly low. And that is the gap you need to fill. So stop waiting for this perfect job in a field that is being automated away. Look at the data. Move toward roles that require your physical presence and your human judgment. And if you want to stay ahead of the curve and grow your professional value, then you got to stay moving. Stay consistent and be intentional about where you plant your feet. Don't be part of the 50% who just let their degree collect dust. Don't be that accountant that waits for a chatbot to take your chair. Build a career that actually has a future and build a moat around your life. Now, I've told you which roles are the safest. Position yourself accordingly and revise your resume to get ready to make that switch. Now, it's on you to get to work and plan for the future. But until then, I'll see you guys in my next video.